What's up guys, I'm Dunmere. I'm a rank 1 peak Supervive player with almost 1,000 hours played already. So in this video, I'm going to jump through and give you guys what I think are the best equipment, powers, and level up order for Kingpin. Starting off with the actual equipment, Kingpin does have a lot of different builds that he can run. He gets high HP scaling, but also gets some solid damage from running damage items. However, the core of the builds that I'm recommending here at the top, the meta builds, does each have an amplifier, and that's because I think amplifier is not only one of the best items in the whole game, but it's especially good on Kingpin. However, I will give you guys these builds and why I think they're really good, but I'll also explain some other options in case you want to run a more damage oriented or a tanky build. So for those who don't know, amplifier is an extra good cooldown reduction item. It gives a flat extra 5% cooldown reduction on top of other items, on top of the other tech blade versions, but on top of that, every time you use a power or an ability consecutively, so if you use the hook over and over and over, it stacks an additional 5% cooldown reduction each time. So up to 10 times total. So if you use it 10 times in a row, you can get a CDR reduction of 50%, which is kind of crazy on an ability like hook, which is, why I'm recommending running it. Or alternatively, running it with the dash and knocking that down to a half cooldown just from traveling around the map, right? So you can enter a fight and look for a slam and have a half cooldown dash just because of the item that you picked, right? Obviously the hook is the stronger version, but it's flexible, right? So because of course when you do use the actual another ability, it takes away the cooldown reduction of the other ability you were using and then starts the whole stacks over back to 1 on the new one. So having said that, Kingpin is a mana intensive character to some extent, and so I have two different builds here. I have the Amplifier Guardian's Respite build that gives you a tank item that gives an additional 15% HP shield. This is what I would say is like the min-max build, essentially. Throw on the meditation boots and stand still while you're waiting for your hook to come back, and you'll get yourself some extra mana, enough to justify not running a mana item, right? But if that's not working, then go ahead and trade out that Guardian's Respite for a Scholar item. And then you'll have a more consistent build, right? But there are still a lot of other good items on Kingpin. For example, the Mind Blade. So if you're looking for a damage-oriented build, an entirely damage-oriented build, you can take the Mind Blade because it is the best mana item in the game, just for farming mana. Because it gives you a bunch of extra mana for landing powers on enemies, and also restores that mana while giving you additional max mana, so it's really powerful, while also being a damage item. So like I said, if you're looking for a damage build, go ahead and trade out the Scholar in my top build for a Mind Blade, or even try something like trading the Turbo Booster for the Guardian's Respite for an extra speedy build where you get extra movement speed when you dash, right? Those are good options. However, if you're looking for something more tanky, you can go ahead and for like a balanced build, you can trade the Guardian's Respite or they can trade the Amplifier in Guardian's Respite build. You can trade it and do Scholar Guardian's Respite. That will give you a lot of HP and reliability. But if you have the ability and you're okay with not running a mana item, then go ahead and pick the Helm of Gigantism. That will give you it's technically a 2/4 or a 3/4 tank build and 1/4 damage build, because the Helm of Gigantism is a half item, does both, but it gives you additional AP scaling, so extra damage for having tankiness. So you'll be getting an extra like a pretty reliable chunk of damage, extra AP. Like it's definitely a justifiable amount in addition to the tankiness of Guardian's Respite, and it's a very like min-maxy build, to be honest. It has the highest stats for sure. And if Amplifier wasn't in the game, I would probably be recommending everyone run that one instead. Having said that, the rest of the items aren't crazy insane. If you are like running one of these mana item builds, you could potentially trade out the shoes for a chain jump, get yourself some extra, the ability to get to high grounds or double high grounds and things like that. Those are options. But some of the other items like Vive Infuser, Greed, Soulbound, Grace, they're just worse versions, or they just do worse versions of what you would want. Like Vive Infuser, for example, is just worse than Guardian's Respite, less reliable. It doesn't do as much. Greed is a worse version of gigantism, etc. And of course, the rest of these items are just entirely useless, and you don't really need to have those. So don't use them. Use one of the builds or the variants I talked about, and you'll be quite happy. So getting into the actual level up order for Kingpin, we're gonna definitely start off with dash most of the time. That would be my argument. Most people, they go ahead and go with the slam first because it does allow you to clear camps faster, which in theory means you land in a camp, you go slam the camp, instantly go back to your dash for level 2. And that's technically the fastest way to do it. But the thing is, if you are in a situation where you are contesting enemies, and there's a chance where like actual players, and there's a chance you won't be able to get your dash, you are going to be a complete liability to your team. You're not going to be able to maneuver around the map. You'll just die. Won't be able to slam anybody, and you won't be able to even escape very reliably either. So I recommend going for dash, making sure it's just your habit in general, so you don't accidentally hit the wrong button and be useless for your team fight, if you happen to have one, or you didn't expect one to come and it came. So yeah. However, on top of that, some people might question why I would put dash or slam at level 2 instead of level 3 and pick hook instead, and that's because Kingpin gets value and is like a partial character at level 1 and 2 if he has at level 2 if he has dash and slam, because he can dash and slam somebody, right? But if you don't have that and you have dash and hook, they don't synergize very well together, and you can hook people, but you can't do anything to them. And a lot of your teammates might not even have like a stun to be able to help you with. So that one should be third. After that, we're looking at picking up another dash. Kingpin gets some pretty hefty CDR reductions to both of his dashes when he goes for the dash. And the dash is on a painfully long cooldown at level 1, which I believe is 16 seconds on the long one, because we hate Kingpin players apparently. So, go ahead and pick dash for level 4. It's pretty necessary, to be honest, and you're probably not having like powers at the time to be able to compensate for that. So yeah, level 5 on Kingpin, like with most characters, you're gonna want to go with the ultimate. Kingpin's ultimate isn't insane, but it does have powerful capability as anti-heal, so go ahead and pick that. From here, the reasons for why I'm picking hook, then slam, then hook for these level 3, for the next 3, is first because the ultimate doesn't get that much extra power, so it's not really that important to think about when your primary still does a bunch of damage anyway, and its main reason you'd be using it is for the anti-heal. So it comes down to whether you want to triple the hook or triple the slam, and in which order. So the slam doesn't get a lot of value out of tripling it. It just gets some extra damage, which is good, and it gets like extra damage when you're coming off the sky, but it's very niche, and the hook will give you 33% refund on your cooldown whenever you hit somebody with it. So if you're using it well, that's a lot of value, right? Even if you're running that tech blade version, that amplifier build that I was talking about, you have that with the amplifier build. You farmed it up a couple of times, maybe like 4, which is like reasonable, right? You're getting the cooldown back in like, instead of what would it be, like 9 seconds or something like that at level 2, you're getting it back in like 4, which is pretty insane. And you can literally just like farm it, especially if you don't actually use your slam after you hook, right? So that's why I default into going for the hook in this situation. But since I think most people won't be like hyper min-maxing, it's probably better not to like hard think about what I'm talking about there, and instead just think about the timer. At level 2 for hook, the hook is going down from, I believe, an 18-second or like a 19-second cooldown down to like I think it's actually like 20-ish seconds down to like 15 seconds, right? While the slam at level 1 is at a 12-second cooldown. So if you go for level 2 slam first, then you're dropping the slam down to a 8-second cooldown, I believe is the exact number. Like it's close to this, right? And it changes with the tech items, but basically your slam starts to like outpace your hook too much that it's not even really valuable to have it, because you really are playing off your hook a lot. So it's better to go for your hook first, then slam to level 2, because again, you're trying to do the opposite. If you went level 6 hook, then level 7 hook, you would get to the situation where your hook would just be on such a low cooldown that your slam is like completely useless, right? Which, again, the build I have typed out here, I've written out, is like your most general and good one to go with. You can start customizing it a little bit, like maybe you're playing with a coordinated team where you are just farming the crap out of the amplifier and you're just nonstop hooking and you're not slamming it, then go ahead and postpone the slam, or don't even get it, right? And hold that one off until level 8, right? But assuming you're going general, just go with this one and you'll get a solid value out of having the things lined up properly on that. So yeah, then you get your hook at level 8, level 3, max it, and then you go ahead and max out get your ultimate to level 2. Alright, so now we're going to get into the powers for Kingpin, and I have this set up as a little tier list, but essentially what this means is that since the battle royale is so random, you can't guarantee what powers you're going to find. So you essentially pick them up in the order from bottom to top as you go through the game. You run to some of the powers that are on the bottom. Those are ones you're kind of looking for early on, or as options if you don't have anything. But then as you continue to play the game or kill enemies, you take the stuff that's better towards the top and you keep those. So some of these fall into very similar categories of powers, and so don't be like, for example, trading off your health packs, the one in the bottom right, for a stealth cloak when you have brushwhacker, the one above the health packs, right? The brushwhacker and stealth cloak are very similar. Stealth cloak is just pretty much a better version of brushwhacker, so go ahead and drop the brushwhacker and keep your health packs, right? That kind of idea. Having said that, Kingpin has some very high strengths and very high weaknesses. He has the ability to hook people through walls in his base kit, while also having the ability to basically guarantee a really powerful slam, or a very high set of damage when he slams somebody. So those are going to have a really high capability, right? So you want to play towards powers that are going to make those even stronger, or you want to play for powers that are going to compensate for his weaknesses, which is just a lack of mobility. All right, so starting off with the powers that make him even stronger, you have things like the invisibility items, right? Like I talked about, this brushwhacker thing, this brown face, that, and stealth cloak, and the disguise cloak at the top, or the delicate disguise. Those are all really, really powerful. They just do different value levels of the ability to sneak up on enemies, just slam the crap out of them, and then blow them up, while still saving your mobility to escape with, right? So those are really, really powerful. You're going to look for those, and like I said, trade those out for each other, right? You get a delicate disguise, trade that out for your mana cloak, / stealth cloak, whatever it's called now. Sorry, these things change all the time. All right, and then you're going to have powers that are going to let you hook people through walls effectively, right? So you do have a little bit of an outlier here, which is this tree prison at the bottom. That one's kind of a fun one. You toss it on top of enemies, they're stuck in a spot. Yeah, it technically didn't and give you any special vision, but it's going to herd enemies together, set you up for a pretty likely chance of hooking somebody. So that's good, but maybe not as good as some of these other ones up here, like this Raven Spy that's going to give you vision through walls. Toss that on a tree around you, get a huge burst of vision that lets you see people through walls to hook them, or the even better version of it, which is this delicate X-ray vision. Again, I'm not sure about that one's name. It definitely changed, but it's the purple one eye thing, the white eye with the purple box at the top right. That one will let you see people through walls when you have full HP. So you go ahead and pop that. Look to hook people through walls without them even knowing you're there, right? Like, that's why it's so much better than these Raven Spies, is that you can, the enemies won't know that you're doing it, and then you just hook them through walls and you blow them up, right? It's really, really powerful. And then the next set of things you have here is mobility-based items, or mobility-based powers, right? So you have at the bottom here, you have something like the glider engines, the 3 yellow dot one. That one is really good for moving around the map. It's a very powerful capability, but it's not reliable as much for escaping on a character. It's not as reliable for escaping because you have to use your glider, so that means you can get spiked, right? That's why you have something like hover wings here, which is still really strong for Kingpin. Not as strong as it is on other characters like Celeste, for example, but still very powerful. But definitely not as strong as grappling hook. The chain whirl here. That one, you can, when you pop it on an enemy, you can pre-set up a slam so that when it pulls you towards the enemy, you slam them. And it's just basically is a whole level of unlocking Kingpin, right? The powers like on the top two are going to give Kingpin just like this whole entire different set of like just turn him into an entirely different character essentially. Hover Wings makes him compensate for his weaknesses. Something like Grappling Hook basically is just makes him a whole other character, right? But even more so with this Blinkstone capability, because like it just being a basic movement ability also, similar to Grappling Hook, Blinkstone can let you go through walls, and it's a point and click ability, right? On a very low cooldown too. So you just look at enemies, you put your mouse on top of them. You have to be, you know, kind of close to them, but not that close. You put your mouse on top of them, and then you press it, you pre-slam, and then boom, you're on top of them, slamming them and exploiting them, while still having your other abilities, your dashes, to get away with, right? So it's extremely powerful. This one's terrifying on Kingpin, and will basically just let you just eradicate the whole lobby. You know, it's just insane, right? So that's why I put those two at the top there. The perfect, like, you know, Blinkstone, just absolutely dummy insane. Having said that, there are a couple little exceptions here. There is also something that, like, powers that help with sustain. Sustain isn't Kingpin's most powerful thing for him. It helps, but because he is tanky, but he doesn't want to really brawl that much. So my health packs is strong. It's usable. It's not the best. The one on the bottom right. And then this green thumb berry eater, the ones that are the farthest of strong, those powers are powerful because they let you just pop down this grass and you eat it and you get a bunch of HP. But Kingpin doesn't want to brawl as much as something like, you know, the character brawl, or like I don't know, Oathbreaker or something like that. Firefox, Felix. So yeah. And then as a little fun one of my fun little powers I like a lot is anti-mobility field. You go ahead and pop that before you look for a hook. You'll pull your target, and then it cuts off a bunch of their direction that they can escape to, because it sets up like a little line that enemies, if they dash through, they get stunned, or if they walk through, they get slowed. So that's a good way, especially if you're comboing it with this amplifier build that I talked about, where you just farm the heck out of hooks and you don't ever use your slam. That one is like, that will be really powerful, because it kind of will potentially stun enemies a lot if they try and escape, if your allies don't hit a good stun on them to follow up on it, while just locking down where they can go, and also maybe just allowing you to like set it up beforehand in case you want to like lock down an area of the map that people would try and push you from in the first place. So lots of options with these powers, and these are the ones you're going to want to look for. So yeah. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions or have anything to say, go ahead and throw them into the comments below, or come follow me on my Twitch and my YouTube when I'm streaming, and go ask them there.